So as we just heard, concerns are rising here in South Korea over escalating number of crimes targeting Koreans in Cambodia. For more on this, we're joined today by Professor Lee Hee-eun, Dean and Professor of Law at Handong International Law School. Professor Lee, thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So the 64 Koreans that were brought home from Cambodia now face investigations over alleged online scam operations, as most of them have been criminally charged, right? What kind of punishment could they face?
Right. So at this point, they've been arrested. So what that means is there will be an investigation at various police stations all over the country, depending on where these folks are resident in. And then at some point after the investigation is completed, then the prosecutors will get the case and then decide whether to actually charge them with crimes. And then the process will go forward, assuming that they are tried and charged. But as you mentioned, there are a number of different crimes that are potentially they could be prosecuted for. So for instance, with respect to violations of the Communications Fraud Act, Electronic Financial Transactions Act, as well as related issues to human trafficking, as well as if anyone was directly involved in the torture of or confinement of Koreans abroad, those are also possible crimes where they could be charged. So here we're talking about a wide-ranging investigation, given the number of people involved, but I think we'll have to wait and see exactly what the prosecutors do with respect to what crimes they're charged with.
Right, like you just mentioned, this case is very complicated because being kidnapped and tortured in Cambodia is a separate issue from the alleged crimes like voice phishing or romance scams. So there has been long criticism that punishments for such offenses in South Korea have been too lenient. What's your take on this?
Yeah, in terms of the actual crimes as you sort of laid out here, they're overlapping issues, but naturally they're separate issues here. So the one area, as you referred to, was the voice phishing with respect to crime rings that are sort of engaged in committing fraud against Koreans here in South Korea. But with respect to the other aspect of, which is the more serious aspect of the crimes, here is the human trafficking and, again, alleged torture that has occurred against Koreans abroad. And so with respect to those two crimes, while they're related to each other, they're going to be treated separately. But as you mentioned, the issue of financial crimes specifically, there has been criticism that's been laid out with respect to whether or not those crimes are treated too leniently in terms of jail time, as well as fines that are given to individuals who are accused and then prosecuted and then found guilty. So there is this sense, I think, among people who want to see stronger punishments given to people, especially stronger jail time, longer jail sentences, because of the nature of these crimes and how they've led to now these violent crimes being committed against Koreans. So I think there is something to be said about the leniency that's given. But, obviously, every crime is treated separately. Every individual is treated separately. So we'll have to see in terms of the individual cases, are there any facts that maybe warrant lessening the crimes here with respect to punishment? But in general, I think people are calling for stronger punishments to be laid out towards those individuals.
Right, and there are concerns that bringing back these Koreans does not necessarily mean the victims' financial losses will be recovered. Is there a way for South Korea to sort of legally cooperate with the Cambodian government to address this issue, such as freezing their assets?
Right. So there are cooperation measures, and particularly in terms of treaties that Korea and Cambodia have signed. So specifically, I'm thinking here of extradition treaties which allow for criminals to be who are prosecuted or charged with crimes to be sent to Korea to face prosecution. But there's also cooperation between police investigations. And so this requires, mutual cooperation agreements, as well as, Cambodian law itself provides for this kind of mutual cooperation with law enforcement officials abroad. And so there are a number of legal mechanisms that do exist for Korea and Cambodia to cooperate. And beyond that, because we're talking also about Chinese criminal syndicates as well, Chinese cooperation may be necessary because many of these organizations are based in China. And so this will require, if this is going to be sort of a more wide-ranging approach, to also include Chinese cooperation as well. And there are deals in place between Korea and China that potentially allow this to happen.
I see. And yet there are still young Koreans trying to still get to Cambodia. Are there any legal measures to fundamentally resolve this issue?
Well, on the Korean end of things, the Korean government can certainly put out travel advisories and travel bans. And that's, in fact, what the Korean government has done. They've put bans on certain areas in Cambodia, saying that you cannot travel, you should not travel to these areas because of the high risk that the Koreans could be lured and also basically captured by these criminal organizations. But I mean, obviously, people generally have the freedom to travel, and people will continue to travel to Cambodia. So probably the most important aspect of this is just education. People need to realize that if you do go to Cambodia, you're going to potentially face these issues, especially if you go to certain regions and are lured by these criminal organizations to get these kinds of high-paying jobs. So I think the way to address this for young Koreans is to educate them and to get the word out that you need to be very wary of getting these kinds of job opportunities abroad.
Right. Education is key to solving this problem, I guess. All right, Professor Lee, thank you so much for your insight today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me.